Hello everyone, it's the beginning of autumn up here in the woods and I'm just collecting some twigs for the campfire. I'm just gonna cook myself up an all-day breakfast over the campfire. It's going to be the first real cook-up of autumn, so I have been looking forward to the cooler weather. I mean, I like the summer as much as the next bloke, but it's a bit difficult up in the woods to work in the heat. Plus you tend to get eaten alive by the mozzies. So this is the remnants of the Norwegian round stack that I built over 2 years ago now. And you kind of chuck all the odds and sods into the middle of it, and that's pretty much what we're left with now. All the decent wood has been used over the last couple of years. The top has definitely seen better days, but yeah, I meant to come and fix this actually. It's been like this for a few months, but I just haven't had the time. Just haven't had the time for a lot of things, to be fair, recently. Just always seem to be busy doing one thing or another, but such is life. Was it Einstein that said, what did he say? The reason we have time is so that everything doesn't happen at once. But you kind of think, well, if everything did happen at once, at least you'd get everything done in a reasonable time frame. A lot of this wood seems to have just got a bit damp. Obviously it's had no protection from the top. So I've got my old Helco Werk Black Forest axe with me. This time I have been using my Hultafors trekking axe for the last couple of years, but I cleaned it up the other day and oh, it looked fantastic. So I took it home and put it on the mantelpiece. Seems reasonably dry, this hazel. I mean, really you should split it as soon as you cut it for it to season properly. So once I've split down the larger bits of wood, I'll often start to use the Gränsforsbruck hand hatchet to make the kindling. It's a fantastic little axe this. I carry it all the time on my belt these days. Kind of doubles up as a knife as well, if you just want to shave some wood off for some tinder. It'll do that job just as good as a knife. So I've just come to gather some tinder, and this is pretty good stuff, the honeysuckle bark. If you can find some dry bits like this, it'll work really well. I've literally just walked about 10 metres from where I gathered the honeysuckle, and 2 birds of prey just flew underneath the mid canopy about 2 metres above my head. Fantastic. They were absolutely silent. So I got a pretty close look at them. I've just come to get a bit more tinder off this birch tree here. I've actually got some fat wood in my bag which I harvested in Sweden. Oh, it must have been 4 or 5 years ago now. So I'm going to use that to start the fire. You have to be careful when you're collecting bark from birch trees. You should really look for fallen trees or dead trees. What you don't want to do is end up ring barking the tree, because it will die. You see it quite often where people have usually got a knife and peeled off a ring all the way round the trunk of the tree, and that just kills the tree. But if you're careful, you can just peel bits that have already come off and try not to pull at it too much. So this is my little chunk of Swedish fatwood. So I'm just going to take my Mora Kansboll knife, which I actually bought on the same trip up to Sweden all those years ago. So we'll take this over to the fire pit and get some of this tinder on there. Well, the sun seems to have come out. Just going to get a billy can full of water on here. Get some coffee. So I've got the little Tetra drip here, and I've actually got some Costa coffee, Amazonian blend. Let's give that a go. I'll just get a filter in. So it's time to start prepping breakfast or lunch, as it has now become. I've got some bacon there, smoked bacon. I've got some tomatoes, mushrooms. I've got some wee black pudding, lovely this stuff. A couple of eggs and some beans. So it's not exactly fine dining, but it's good enough for me. I'm using the Finnish wilderness pan, so you don't really want to cut your things up too fine because it gets really hot, that pan. So I think you need to have your mushrooms about 1 centimetre thick. So I've just moved the bacon over to the edges. I'm just going to add a little bit more oil there. And we'll go in with the black pudding. So it's all going well. Just going to move the black pudding now to the edges of the pan as that's cooked. And we'll start to get these these mushrooms cooked off. So we'll go in with the tomatoes there. Now I've noticed that the oil is pooling down this side of the pan, so I think that's where I'm going to get the egg. Get a little bit more oil in there. So I've just put some kindling underneath, just used the little mini bellows just to up the temperature, and that should finish these eggs off. So that's me done for today up here in the woods. I've washed the pan up, which is something I'll do straight away with this pan. I'll clean it and then I'll rub some oil into it, and it just prevents it from rusting, especially if it's going to get chucked in the back of the truck and forgotten about for a few days. Yeah, so I'm going to head on out. So as ever guys, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you again in the next one.